So welcome everybody to day 2 of the 5-day challenge. I'm super excited to have you here. Today was an awesome start to the 5 days and where we really started to look at values, which is the foundation. The foundation of this work is looking at values. But today we're going to be delving just a little bit further into belief systems. And I think belief systems is one of those things that often people's ears prick up, because I think it gives us this opportunity to delve into what is potentially holding us back, and gives us an opportunity as well to look at, to actually become empowered, that we're not just a victim of beliefs that have been instilled into us. And I think now more than ever, this is so relevant. However, let's not rush into things too quickly. At the beginning of each day, what I will be doing is doing a recap. So if for whatever reason you can't watch all of the videos, don't worry, I'll do a recap so that it does all make sense. Hi Maureen, thanks for jumping on, and hi Rach, can't see your face but can see that you're here. So that's awesome. Okay, where are we? Let's jump into it. Okay, now did anybody catch yesterday's replay? I know some of you were on the call yesterday. And before we get stuck into things, can I just open up the lines, and could you share with me what your biggest learning or aha moment was from yesterday? So were there any aha moments or things that you went, I hadn't looked at that from that perspective before? Does anyone have anything that they can share with us? Anyone? No, I either completely confused you all. Okay, Sherry, if you're here, you can unmute yourself. I can't unmute you from this end. Hi.
Okay.
How are you going?
Hi. Good. What got me was when you were talking about the ratios and how I still needed a little more on the ratios, but it was talking about the inner conflict and everything. It really, it was my aha moment, because a lot of times I think, okay, well, I've got this balance, I know what I want, but then the people around me don't. And so I don't have that way of bringing it into balance with them as well. So that really hit home.
Beautiful. Well, that's exactly what I was going to recap yesterday, was looking at, so if everyone can see this, and those that have done worked with me before, you'll be familiar with this chart. I constantly go back to it. This is actually John DeMartini was the person that first introduced me to this, and looking at those ratios, that when our mind is polarized, so when somebody or something supports your values, you'll have a tendency to go up here and be infatuated. Like, we love being supported. It's human nature. It's animal nature. It's the animal nature within the human mind, is to love to be supported. And likewise, when somebody challenges your values and is, that we start to resent them, that they're really challenging our values. And the same, it's the animal part of the human mind that is down here. So in actuality, like, probably the best way that I can describe it is, if I'm sitting here and just looking at this side of the room, so just looking at you, it doesn't mean that the other side doesn't exist. It just means that I'm only perceiving one half of the equation. Okay, and that's all this is. So we filter our reality through our values. That's the reality of it. So with the work of Joe Dispenza, when I first got introduced to it, and science is constantly discovering that our mind is more infinite than we first thought. But the recent figures that his scientists have come up with is that consciously we're perceiving around 40 bits of information per second. So around 40, that's your conscious awareness. That's all your brain really has capacity to. If you're on high alert, maybe it might be slightly more. If you're kind of relaxed and just, munging out a bit, it might be slightly less, but around 40 is the figure there. However, your subconscious is taking in approximately 3 billion bits of information per second. Okay. Now, those figures are so vast and so far apart from each other that what that tells us from a purely scientific and mathematical perspective is that the story that we tell ourselves actually is not true. Like, when you have a look at that. Now, for me, that was my big aha moment, that I was like, So if it's not true, then it should be relatively easy to change it, right? And the answer is yes. But first of all, you have to have an awareness that you can change it, and you have to have an awareness of what you want to change it to, because you don't just go in there and start mucking around with things. Now, many of your belief systems that have been instilled in you, they served you. You know, they've served you up until now. They served you when you were a small child. Okay, and that's the truth of it. You know, there are times when, you know, when you have a look at a small child, I mean, a typical one would be you're a small kid, you're going through the supermarket with your mum or dad, and you're trying to sneak lollies and chocolates into the shopping trolley. Did anyone do that? I used to have a crack on the odd occasion. And your mum tells you, no, you can't have that. No, you can't have that. And you get told, no, 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 you can't have that. And so perhaps then the belief is that, oh, I can't have what I want. I want that and I can't have it. So, you know, little things like that, because the thing about a child's mind is it takes everything in, but it has no capacity to discern truth from fiction, you know, and that's what makes children so beautiful. But on the flip side, there's a downside to it. So everything is in perfect balance, you know, everything has an upside and a downside. But when you're filtering your reality through your very limited perception and starting to make a story about it, we start to get into this, and this is the animal mind. Now, when you're centered, when you can actually start to learn the tools and integrate them into your daily life on how to bring your perception back to the middle, this becomes angelic, because when you're on purpose, you're willing to embrace pain as well as pleasure, because you know that this is your path and you're certain. I mean, Beck, you're a perfect example of that, aren't you, with your business? We did work around this years ago, and I mean, oh my God, like how far you've come. I just want to give you a big hug through the computer screen. It was just amazing that when you got really clear on that, now, by the way, the quickest way to discover what your purpose is, often people are like, okay, what's the formula? What do I do? The very quickest way. So if you're watching this right now, the very quickest way to discover what your purpose is to start working on your trauma, to start working on past things that happened in the past that you labeled as bad. Because each time you come to that ratio, what happens is you collapse it and you just start to see a little bit of how this was actually serving you. You start to see these like bad events that you've labeled that should never have happened, which, by the way, one of the things, you know, I'm studying neuroscience and psychology at the moment, and one of the biggest things that I see within the mainstream psychology is that there has to be a victim. There's a victim and there's a perpetrator, and the reality is while you are stuck in the victim mode, while you are a victim of your history, you will not transcend. Okay, because the thing is, yes, bad stuff has happened to most of us. You know, we've all had things happen to us that it was somebody else's, you know, somebody else has done this, or they've set up circumstances. That's a pretty common story amongst most people. But while you're blaming somebody else for the way that you feel, you can't be empowered. Okay, like there's a truth bomb for you. That's the reality. While you are blaming somebody else or blaming a circumstance in your past for how you're feeling right now, you will never be empowered. Okay, so please don't kid yourself that you can justify it and make that person wrong and make you right, and that's empowering, because it's not. Challenge me on that. Try and prove me wrong. Okay, seriously, try and prove me wrong on that. That's a big truth bomb for those that are new to this, you know, new to listening to me. But I'm here to get you a result. I'm not here to make you feel warm and fuzzy. So, you know, if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your girl. Okay, so moving on to this now. I hope did that make sense? Has that made sense to everyone? What I've just shared there. Those that know this work, Claire, if I miss anything out, pull me up, let me know. I mean, you know this work really well. I've got a lot to cover. Oh God, geez, time goes quick when I'm talking about this stuff. Well, I hope it does for you. It does for me. Okay, so Our values trigger our biggest stresses. Now, just a little quick thing in here as well, because this is not something that I usually include in this course. However, I feel that it's super relevant based on the world that we're living in right now, okay? Because there's, when our values are challenged, we get stressed. Now, take a moment just to feel how that applies in your life. Like if somebody challenges your family, that can be a stressor. If somebody challenges your work or whatever else is your highest value, and our voids become our values. Say for example, if you looked in your bank account, today, and all of a sudden it was at zero and you're like, where's my money gone? That's likely to cause you a stress, okay? Because something that you had is taken away. There's all of a sudden a void there. And so we focus on whatever we perceive is the most missing. So if anyone that's here, if I started to chat to you about what your childhood was like, and not in a sort of therapist type way, but if I was to sit down and find out, delve into your childhood, I could probably work out what your values are, because our voids from when we're a kid is what sort of really strengthens our values as an adult. Now, the other thing as well is for anybody as well, and I only have a handful of spaces left, for anybody that is looking to go on to the next program, I'm actually planning this time on including, as well as your values. So the first week we delve into that and I make sure that your values are absolutely on point. I personally go through values and ensure everyone's really clear on what their values are, beyond what we kind of have time to do in this course. But the other thing that I'm going to be including is your core value, okay? Because that's another one. Geez, when you know your core value. Now, your core value is something that came from when you're a child. And when you can discover what that is, you can really use it. Like your mind is a tool that you can use, but you've got to learn how to use the operating system. And we haven't been taught how to use the operating system because where, like our school system and university and all the rest of it, it teaches us that we kind of are the mind. So you have to kind of step out and look at what this tool is. It's like the mind observing the mind. So we can work out what the tool is, where its limitations are, where its capabilities are, and then you start using your mind as a tool. Because for most people out there, their mind is just running them. And then we get ourselves into these sticky situations, life isn't going well, and it's like, how do I get myself out of it? You've got to kind of, step out and look down. And the quickest and easiest way to do that is to observe what your values are. So, our values really do drive our behavior. Our values drive our behavior through and through. So if you want to know why you're acting a certain way, have a look at your values. Now, the other thing as well is if you want to know why other people are acting the way that they are, that's usually a big one as well. Why is everyone around me acting nuts? Have a look at what their value system is. Because when you can start to observe your own behavior in relation to your values, you stop taking other people's behavior so personally. Because generally, nobody's waking up in the morning and thinking, how can I really get under your skin? How can I really make your day a misery? People just aren't doing that. Well, there might be a few sociopaths out there, but generally people aren't doing that, right? And it's the same, I'm sure that you've done things with good intentions and other people have taken these, things completely the wrong way. Has everyone had that experience? I've had that experience on numerous times. And so when we start to observe other people's values, we don't take this personally. Now, the other thing as well is when we learn the tools on how to bring our mind back to the center. So when we learn how to bring our mind back to the center, we can start communicating our values in some, what's important to us in terms of what's important to somebody else without the emotional charge attached to it. Okay, when you're emotionally charged, there's a really good chance that the message is not being received. Because who likes it? Does anyone here like it when somebody comes at us, with a self-righteousness of I'm right and you're wrong and tries to tell us what to do? Come on, we hate it, and right, that starts right from when you're a little kid. This morning, me trying to, trying to tell Floyd, you should know where your shoes are. Should, whenever you hear the language should, that for everyone that's Floyd is my 5-year-old son, and we've been late for school every day this week, just basic stuff, you know. But when I project onto him, you should know where you've taken your shoes off. Why? Because that's important to me. He doesn't give a shit. That's the reality of it. I've got to speak in terms of his values, and his values are his friends. So tomorrow I'm going to try out, if we can get changed, and you know, if you can get ready by yourself on time, it means we can get to school early and you can play with your friends. I know that that works with him. See how it's the same thing, but just all of a sudden I've taken the time to care about him. So we will be talking about communication towards the end of the week. So if this is something that you're having challenges with at the moment, stay tuned for communication day, which I think is either day 4 or 5, but I'll check that out. Okay, so beliefs. Actually, no, there's one more key piece of information, because the other thing that causes you stress, and I'm sure depending on where you are in the world right now, this will be a big one for most people. Okay, this will start to make sense of why you are perhaps waking up stressed and you're not even sure why. Okay, because there are 4 threats. When any one of these 4 threats appear in our environment, our external environment, our physiology will be stressed and you won't even necessarily be conscious of why. Now, why this is so important to understand right now is that when your physiology is in stress, okay, you're sending mixed signals to your body. Okay, when your body is in a stress response, no different to, okay, just assume that you're in the wild right now. You're walking through the bush, and then all of a sudden, depending on where you are in the world, let's just say a snake. Let's assume that we're scared of snakes. Okay, you're walking through the bush and all of a sudden there's a snake. Oh, Beck isn't. Everyone else is shitting themselves, but Beck isn't. She has a reptile park. Okay, so let's just assume you're walking through the bush and all of a sudden there's a poisonous snake sitting right in front of you. Okay, what does your physiology do? You've just been sitting there, you've been having a nice relaxed walk, your body is in homeostasis, you're just casually, strolling, and then there's a poisonous snake right in front of you. Your initial response will be that your heart will start beating quicker. And what it's trying to do is it's taking all of the resources from your vital organs within your body and pumping blood into your extremities so that you can run or fight. Okay, so this is where fight or flight comes in. We know this, okay? Now, after that snake's gone, whether you've run away or decided to fight it, I think I would be on the flight with that one. I'd be, taking the flight stance. But once you're away from it, all of a sudden your body will just go back into a homeostasis. You're like, phew, that was a close call. Unless, of course, you're someone that keeps thinking about that moment, okay? Trigger, and that's where post-traumatic stress comes in. If you keep thinking about it and thinking about worst case scenarios, your physiology doesn't know the difference between truth and fiction, okay? All it knows is that we're replaying a threat in our mind, and your physiology operates the same way. But if you are able to just put that aside, your body just goes into homeostasis. You go home, you make a cup of tea, your body starts going in, your cells start regenerating and repairing. Now, if that metaphorical snake is still sitting in the background and triggering a stress response, but you're not kind of consciously aware, and that is what's happening for most people globally in some form right now. So let me expand on this. Now, there are 4 threats that when they are in our environment, we will be in a stress response and we may not actually know why. The number 1 is physical safety. Okay, if your physical safety is threatened, you will be in a stress response, but you might not be consciously aware of what's going on. So physical safety can come in many forms, but right now there are really 2 people in this camp. There are people that physically are feeling that their safety is like their physical safety in terms of fear of contracting a virus. And there's other people that have a fear of being stuck in their homes. That's like a fear of my physical safety is being compromised here, and all of the stuff that goes on with that. So there's 2 sides to that, but nevertheless, physical safety. Can everyone see how that's playing out for people around them right now? Yeah. Okay. The second one is the unknown. Okay. When you're in an environment where there's unknown, you will feel stressed. Okay. So you will feel stressed. So right now, if you are in an environment where like your health department or your government, where you feel like, you know, they're not being transparent with the information that they're giving you, that will cause you to feel stressed. If you are perceiving that there is, you know, that there's an unknown of like, okay, there's some people in my local area that have got, you know, got the virus and I don't know where these people are, that's an unknown. Okay, I'm relating it to what's happening in the world right now. So there's unknowns in there. You know, and anytime you perceive an unknown. So can anyone think back to the last 12 months where there's been an unknown in their environment that's triggered them stress? You know, it's no different.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually in December, I got COVID and I worked at a doctor's office and all of us but 3 got it. And it was shocking because we did everything right, so to speak, but we all got it anyway. But the other thing is knowing that there's an invader in your body. Every time you feel bad after that, you're not sure if you're going to be one of those long-term ones or, you know, that there's a lot of unknown with that.
Yeah.
And so even just today with the pain that's still in my kidney, I'm like, okay, don't start over. You know, it's really scary.
Yeah. Well, so that's a perfect example of an unknown. Okay. So, and it causes stress because when you don't know what's going to happen, it's stressful, you know, like end of story. So that's the second one. Now, the third one is an incongruence in the environment. Okay. Anytime that your environment feels incongruent, okay, that will trigger a stress response in your physiology as well. Okay. So an incongruence in the environment, let's relate it back to what's a good example of this. Perhaps you've been in a workplace, you know, for example, a workplace where management or the directors are telling you one thing, but then doing another. Okay, that's an incongruence in your environment. Okay. You know, where even, I mean, I know in Perth, my perception has been health advice has been conflicting. The health advice that we've been getting from authorities has conflicted. So for me, that's an incongruence in the environment. Oh, hang on, the internet is going haywire again. Let me just check. So these are things. Hang on, sorry, I'm just clicking over to the other internet. So that can be an incongruence in the environment where the official advice that you're getting is conflicting. Okay, that's an incongruence. It's like, who do I listen to? You know, the health department or the premier, or, you know, what's going on? What's true? What's actually going on here? That's an incongruence as well. I mean, no different to you, you know, Sherry, that you know, getting advice, do this and you'll be safe, and then going, well, hang on, I'm not. You know, that's an incongruence as well. So that causes stress. Now, you might not be consciously aware of it, but it's there. Okay, it's there. It's causing stress in your physiology. And the fourth one is should and unmet. Anytime that you're feeling like there's a should on top of you, whether that's something that you're putting on yourself or someone else, a should or an unmet expectation will cause stress. Okay, so anytime you're feeling like you're not living up to others' expectations or your own, that will cause stress in your physiology. So knowing those 4 things, I have personally found them so valuable. I have had times in the past 12 months where I've woken up and got out of bed and went, my physiology doesn't feel right. Like I feel stressed and I'm not sure why. And I went back to that. Are there any incongruencies? Are there any 4 threats that are being presented in my environment right now? And let's have a look at them. Because sometimes with these, it's just the awareness of that's what's going on is enough for you to go, like, that's why. I'm not going crazy. I'm actually quite the opposite. My physiology is on point. It's giving me feedback that there's something happening in my environment that's off. Okay, so use your physiology, get back into your body. You know, mindfulness, mindfulness to me used to just be a nice practice, whereas now I can see that mindfulness now helps you get into your physiology so that you can start to use your body as a barometer to stay on track. Because when you can become aware of these stresses in your environment and just go, now that I'm aware of it, that's why I'm feeling that way, just let it all go. You can actually start to use your body, to give you feedback, and which is the tool that it was designed for. But how many of us were taught, as you know, from small kids, to kind of like ignore our intuition and like, don't feel bad, don't feel, you know, unhappy. We just want you to be happy all the time. We just want you to feel good. If you're angry or upset, take that shit into the other room because we're not interested. Anyone else have that? My God, when I reckon that sometimes I still get that from my parents. I'm sure that I do. Yeah, don't talk about that. That's awful. No, but you know, so being able to embrace both sides, and this is what these tools will allow you to do. So if you haven't already, write those down. That's super valuable. And in the next program, I delve into those and actually give you the physical experience of feeling what each one of those feels like as well. Okay, so when it comes to beliefs, you've got your values. Your values belong to you. Okay, your values are authentically you. Your beliefs are not. Okay, your belief systems are determined on the household that you grew up in, the school that you went to, the environment that you had, the friends that you had, maybe the sporting club that you're in. You know, they're really determined by your environment growing up. Okay. And when your belief systems are incongruent with your values, cue inner conflict. Okay. If you're somebody that sometimes finds it really hard to make decisions, okay, what's happening is that your belief systems and your values are in misalignment. They're just not working together. They're working against each other. Okay. And belief systems are often injected values, where you've injected somebody else's values or somebody else's idealisms about the way things should be. You know, and a should is cue, and a should or an unmet expectation triggers stress. Okay, so that's often what's going on. Now, tonight's challenge is for you all to write down 3 limiting belief systems that you've got. Okay, that's going to be tonight's challenge, but I'm going to go into this a little bit more, because where do these belief systems come from? Okay, now they can just be being in an environment and absorbing an environment, but they can actually also come from traumatic events can trigger them as well. And I'd love to share a story about one of my beautiful clients, Sophia, who is in Melbourne at the moment. Are you guys almost out of lockdown, Claire? Is that happening today or tomorrow? Yeah, cool. I know that that's been hard on a lot of you, because I get the messages. So I was with Sophia one day. We're just on Zoom having our meeting, and she was studying for her final exams at uni. And the bar is that she had to get 70% to pass. Okay, so there's not really a lot of, you know, room for movement. Like, you've got to know your stuff. And she said, look, I've got this exam coming up, and every time I go to sit down to study, I get this intense pain right in the middle of my back, right about where my hairline is there. And it shoots up my back, all through my neck, and I get this migraine and I can't think. I was like, that is so curious. What is going on here? And she said, yeah, like, I said, do you have any idea where it's come from? She said, no, it's just been getting worse and worse. Like, as I've got older, it's just got worse and worse. But I literally, the thought of going into that exam room is just triggering anxiety. I'm getting these migraines. I can't study, and I'm scared that I'm not going to pass. I have to pass because, you know, I've got a job lined up. Like, I need it. Like, this has to happen. There's no, like, you know, ifs or buts here. This has to happen. So we went back in, and what I got her to do was I got her to get really present with the feeling. I got her to imagine that she was in that exam room and to feel that feeling as big and as ugly as she possibly could. And she was like, oh, it's so intense, stop it. Yeah. But we went into that, and I went, okay, what I want you to do is close your eyes, and I want you to go back to your earliest memory that you've got of feeling that way. Oh my God. And the story that she started to share with me, so she's sitting there and she's like, oh my God. She said, I'm sitting at the breakfast table on my way, on a Saturday morning, I'm on my way to school to sit an exam. And she said, and she lived in Ethiopia. And each morning on the radio, they would listen to the news to see if there were any gunmen out, because that was, you know, it was quite volatile in Ethiopia at the time. And there was often gunmen out on the streets. And so you had to listen to the radio. But on this particular day, their routine was different because they were having an exam on a Saturday, her and her younger brother. So they got ready, they ate their breakfast, they skipped listening to the news, and they started walking down this dirt track, you know, back way through some bush on their way to school. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, two gunmen come out from the bushes and grab her and her brother in a headlock and poke a gun in her back, right at her bra line, exactly where this was coming from. And she thought she was going to die. She literally thought that her and her brother, her at 15 years old, her brother was 12, she thought that they were dead. She thought, we're going to get killed. That's it for us. Now, these were only kids. These were gunmen, but they were only kids. They were only teenagers themselves. Of course, she didn't know that when there's a gun. And pretty soon the police came, the authorities came, broke it up, arrested them, took them away. And she's left to walk to school to do her exam. Like, how nuts is this? So you can imagine, right, that this is a pretty polarized memory, okay? It's a really polarized memory. But the only way to come to it is, you know, I could have sat there and said, Sophia, this is so awful. That should have never have happened to you. You know, they were wrong. You know, you are a victim here, which is true, right? But there's another truth. There's another layer to the truth, okay? That's just going to allow her to sit in this story even further. I said, okay, what we've got to do here is we've got to actually balance this out by looking to this situation that is really down here. It's very polarized. It's a very negative memory. We've got to bring it back. And the only way we're going to do that is to start to look for where the benefits are. That's the only way we're going to shift this belief. So we started to look for where the benefits were. And she said, well, she said, do you know what? I've never really looked at it from that perspective, but there are a lot of amazing things that came from that moment. She said, I didn't want it. So they were Greek Ethiopian, or not were, they are Greek Ethiopian. She said, I really wanted to, you know, there was no opportunity for me in Ethiopia. You know, basically it was, you go to school, as a female, you get married, you have children, and that's your life. There's no further studying or anything like that. That's just the culture. But she was someone that wasn't really, you know, family's important to her, but that was not her path. And she said, in that moment, I was supported. There were people there that were actively pursuing, like I was supported. I was with my brother. You know, even though I was intensely challenged, I had that support at the same time. But what came from that moment was that when she went home that day and her parents found out what happened, all of a sudden the conversation around the dinner table that night changed. Okay, all of a sudden it was like, how can we get out of this country? Because our children are too important to us. So their family began making plans to sell up everything and to leave the country. And within 3 months, she was on her way to Greece. And from Greece, not long after, they migrated out to Australia. And from that opportunity, you know, the opportunity that she's had here versus what she would have had in Ethiopia is chalk and cheese. She was able to pursue a career. She was able to go to university. She was able to live in a country where she felt safe. She was able to, her whole family was able to come out here. And if that moment had not happened, her pathway in her life would have been very, very different. So in that moment, and the moment that you know that you have transcended your trauma is when you can sit there and I can say, is there anything getting in the way of you feeling grateful for those gunmen holding that gun in your back? And when she sat there and she said, no, I am so grateful that happened. My life is exactly where it's meant to be right now, and it would not have been there if it wasn't for that person putting the gun in the back of my back. Now, have a guess what you think happened to her physically. Oh my God, the weight just fell off her. Did she suffer migraines or neck pain when she was trying to study? No, she was able to sit down and get stuck into those books and absolutely ace her exam and step into her career that she absolutely loves. So that's an example of a belief system that's caused by a traumatic event. Okay, was that interesting hearing that story for everyone?
It is interesting. Is there anything that can block that healing?
Not that I've come across.
Okay.
Not that I've come across. The only thing that can block it is somebody that perceives that something bad will happen if they delve into it. Okay. And I've had that happen. I've had that happen before so I once had a lady who had migraines, and her migraines were triggered also by work. But she had also a belief. So no, there's nothing that can block that other than me being astute enough to see if there's any other beliefs that are in conflict. Because I had a client once who had migraines because her work was in conflict with her beliefs. She was actually a counsellor in the mental health profession, and she was like, nobody ever gets better. It's because they're using this model of the victim. They're using the victim perpetrator model, and that's why people don't actually get better in the traditional sort of mental health system.
Right.
But she had a belief that was sitting under there, that until we were able to uncover it, because she'd almost get there and then she kept going back and she was getting these migraines. She had a belief that if she overcame this, that she'd have to go back to work. Okay, so there was something in her brain saying, don't go there, don't fix this, because you're on stress leave at the moment and you don't have to deal with this. And so that needed to be overcome before she could actually delve into it, what was actually going on underneath. So to answer your question, the only thing that gets in the way is people trusting the process and having the courage to answer the questions. And that was probably the only one that I've ever come across where we had to sort of sidestep things a little bit and work out what was the payoff of the belief system. Because the thing is that there's always a payoff. There's always a conscious payoff of why you're feeling that way, or why you're locked into a belief. A big one is that our beliefs, when we hold similar beliefs to the people around us, we're accepted. We're accepted into their reality, where, we feel connected to our community. We feel like we're part of the team. So when we have the same belief systems to others, and, like they serve a purpose. Okay. When we transcend our belief systems, there might be a moment where people around you don't understand you. They're like, what are you doing? Because you'll change the way that your social contract will change with people. And they're like, what? This isn't what I signed up for. I can remember when I told my husband that I was quitting my job to start doing this business. And he was like, that is not a job. What are you doing? You can't do that. Like, really what he's saying is, I know you as that person and you're changing, and that's not part of our social contract here. This was not what I signed up for. And I was like, don't worry, I'm never going to fail because I will never give up. And he was like, oh shit, here we go. Anyway, that was 10 years later. So he kind of believes me now. He's on board. It took a while. But, that's what happens with our beliefs. It takes courage. It takes courage to look at them because it's confronting. It can be confronting. So tonight's challenge is to write down 3 limiting beliefs that you've got. Now have a look at where you've got them from. See if you can track them back. Was it just growing up in your environment? Like beliefs around money. Often we will take on our parents' beliefs around money. That's usually a big one for people. Was there a traumatic event that happened in your past that formed a particular belief about how the world is? So all I want you to do is become aware of them for today. Now, tomorrow when we jump on, at the end of tomorrow's call, what I'm going to do is, if anyone's on tomorrow's call and would like me to show you one of the ways, one of the tools that I have for transforming one of those beliefs, then post it into the group tonight and just let me know that you're interested in jumping in the hot seat. It doesn't matter if I've never met you before or never worked with you before. And even if you're on the replays, still jump in, because we can still do one. Like let me know if you're interested. Let me know what your beliefs are, and I'll pick 2 or 3 out to actually do that process with. Now, by the way, if you're on the replay, I'm still open to working with you. So let me know. It literally takes 10 minutes, so it doesn't take long. So isn't that amazing that these things that we've been holding on to for all these years, we can transform them in a matter of minutes. Okay, because when you're holding on to old beliefs and not having the awareness of actually looking at them, it's like running, old software on your smartphone. Like when you haven't updated your apps, what happens? Your phone crashes. Okay. Now you don't sit there and go, stupid phone, you're so terrible, you can't do anything right, you should be better. No, you don't do that. You don't try and, tell your phone that they're awful or, beat them up. You just upgrade your software. Okay, so the same is true for you. You don't need to beat yourself up because you're not achieving what it is that you want, and you've got this inner conflict. You don't need to beat yourself up anymore. You just need to become aware of which programs are not working and upgrade. That's all. Okay, it's actually not your fault. You're just running old software. Okay, because I'd like you to imagine right now, especially as you're doing this exercise tonight, as you're looking at those limiting beliefs, imagine what your life would be like if they were upgraded. Imagine what would life look like in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, if your beliefs and your values were working together like best friends instead of working against each other. Because often the belief systems, who knows, what wins, the beliefs or the values? I don't think there's any winners in that, because I think even if your values, do win, you feel terrible about it, and it doesn't give you that same sense of like satisfaction and fulfillment. So yeah, Sherry said that she's interested in belief systems. Being a preacher's kid, a lot of rules and regulations. Yeah, never measured up. Yeah, perfect example of beliefs. Yeah, perfect example of beliefs. And I'm sure that look, as a kid, we've all had expectations put on us, like you should do that, you shouldn't do that. Like I said, as a kid, you're just absorbing information. You have no way of discerning it. So please don't beat yourself up for any of that. It's time now to have a look at it. Like, it's not your fault that it happened, but it's your responsibility to do something about it, right? That makes sense. Like that's really all there is to it. So today's challenge: identify 3 beliefs. And tomorrow we're going to start looking, we're going to look into that a little bit deeper. I'm going to help you start to tie those beliefs and your values together so that you can start creating a vision and start setting goals. Start setting goals and start setting a clear direction around those 2 things being in harmony. So can you all see how this is sort of like the framework? Does it maybe make sense now why in the past when you've written out goals and nothing's happened? Like, can you see, like, writing goals, there's a bit of foundation that needs to happen first. So I'll just open up the lines before we go. Is there anyone that's got any questions or any insights from today that they'd love to share? Anything, any aha moments, anything that you wrote down? Nothing. Okay. Well, you were all here, so maybe you're still absorbing it. Okay. Was there anything, even those that the cameras are off, if you want to unmute yourself and share with me? No. Okay. Oh, Nadia, you've got something. Here, you unmute yourself because I can't do it for whatever reason on this end. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. I actually just jumped on at the end and I saw your other things around COVID. I can't remember what it was, all these other workshops.
Yes.
And anyway, it just seems like to just roll off you, then, okay, here's a problem, here's a solution, boom, boom, boom. It just seems so easy. And I'm thinking, but it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like I've been trying to solve this problem for, I don't know, 35 years. That's a very long time.
Do you know, it is simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. Okay, don't confuse those 2 things. It's actually a very simple process, but it doesn't mean that it's easy, especially if you've got decades of.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have a courage, no problem. It's just like pinpointing, that there's something, and it's like you can ask everybody, and so I'm really thankful that you're doing this little workshop. It's nice because I'm thinking, wow, you seem to have some answers, and I'm thinking, okay, this is very nice to hear. I feel hopeful, I guess, is what I'm saying.
That's so
I have a belief that nothing I say and nothing about me is worthwhile. That's the biggest barrier for me. I have I've had accomplishments, obviously, and some really awesome things, and it's still, yeah, but I don't have this, or I don't have this, or I don't, right? So therefore, that's my evidence, right? That belief is still there. It's quite debilitating, actually, because it negates all those accomplishments.
Yeah, so. And thank you for sharing, because I'm sure that other people that are listening to this have got that have had that exact same thing play out. It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon where it's like we kind of, you know, the person that has a problem that asks for everyone's opinion. What should I do? What should I do? And gathers all this information. And then your inner knowing and your inner voice just gets kind of like pushed down. And that, you know, that little girl that wants to speak up gets told to shut up yet again. And you know, it's a really common thing. Okay, I really, if you can do these exercises, please take a look at your values. And I think I shared yesterday that when I did my values and I was like, yeah, these are my values, but what I noticed was that when it came to beliefs is that my values in the beginning were playing out as a subordination. So even though my values were what my life was demonstrating was important, it was still because I was looking for approval from the males in my family, and that's why career. Now, once I was able to transcend that and take them off a pedestal and see that like both sides are required, you know, the system can't work if everyone is focusing on career. We need that balance within a family dynamic, because just to share a bit about me, I came from a family where I used to think that my mum wasn't worth as much as my dad because she was a stay-at-home mum. Now, do you reckon that shit stumped me when I first became a stay-at-home mum? Oh my God, I like had so much to workshop. I was like, if I'm actually going to look after this baby, I've got to do this, because otherwise if I didn't have that awareness, I would have just put him in daycare and kept working and missed out on that poor little, you know, that beautiful little bubba. So it's also having a look at your values. Like, are they a subordination? Now, in saying that, your values are your values. They belong to you. They do belong to you, because my value on career actually didn't change once I cleared that subordination. But what happened was all of a sudden, I gave myself permission to do it my way. Okay. I wasn't doing it because I was trying to seek approval. I was doing it because it was what was truly meaningful and fulfilling to me. Okay. So that's where I think to look at your values in isolation without looking at the beliefs and the conditioning that you had as a kid. And it may be as simple as looking at the times when, as a kid, you were told that your opinion wasn't worthy. You know, did that ever happen to you as a kid? And it might not be directly, but it might have just been the felt sense that you got from being in the room that I've got to stay quiet because their opinion is important and mine isn't. And sometimes it can just be that. And if we can workshop those moments. So, Nadia, if you're able to jump on tomorrow, and
Yep.
I don't know what your schedule is like, delve into, if I can ask you to do two things, do your values if you haven't already, post them into the group, and do your 3 limiting beliefs and post them into the group. And then tomorrow, Sherry's, I don't know if you're interested in, I think you've just posted a thing saying that you might be interested in doing it. If you're interested as well, Nadia, just let me know, and we can stay back.
I will.
Stay back after class,
Yeah.
and I'll see what I can do to start helping you make a bit of sense of what's going on so that you can move through it and not be stuck. Yeah. Exciting times.
Thank
Exciting
you.
times. Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anyone
I'll
else?
see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you tomorrow. And before we go, is there anyone else that has any insights? Tash, you've got something. Can you unmute yourself? You can't. You can't unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're unmuted. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. It won't come up on my screen.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
you know how you were just talking about how not being heard, like, or, you know, that type of thing. I was just thinking about this. Well, it just came to me then. But the other day, like my husband, it's like, you know, is that the same as when you're cut off? And they just continue talking, even though you've started talking, and then they just start talking and continue talking.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's
Okay.
That's sort of that can be it. And the thing is as well is it's about tracing it back to the origins of where it first happened. You know, like it's like working with the origins, because if you're feeling like your partner isn't hearing you, I can guarantee this is not the first time you felt that way. It would be,
No.
you know, we have patterns of feelings that kind of stay with us throughout our whole life. We do. We work in these patterns and cycles, and we think that it's all new information. The other thing, Nadia, if you're still listening, the other thing that would be worth delving into is just asking yourself once you've got those beliefs, write this down so that you've got a note of it. And this can be for everyone. Asking yourself, what's been the payoff? What's been the payoff to believing that? What have I got out of this? Okay, because that will give you a little bit of insight. So Sherry, you asking, does this ever not work? Only if the payoff is so big that you're like, I don't want to shift this, because even though I'm saying that, really I'm believing something else and there's a big payoff here for me. So just ask, you know, what has been the payoff? You know, sometimes it can be, well, you know, it could be as simple as, well, when I listen, when my opinion isn't valid, then at least then I don't have to take responsibility for it. You know, like that can be a payoff. It's not one that probably you want to hear, but you know, it can be a payoff. That's, you know, so delving into that, just, you don't have to share that. I'm not going to ask you necessarily, you can gloss over that. This is a private and personal journey for each and every one of you. So I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask for juicy details or anything like that. You know, this is about helping you get a result. And in actual fact, I don't need to know the details to help you get a result. Okay, details just often waste time. If you want to sit there and thrash out the details with someone, then that's really what a counselor or a therapist is for, because they will sit there and listen to the details. This is a different thing. This is a different thing. So has this been valuable to everyone today? Yeah, awesome. Okay, I hope you're all looking forward to tomorrow. I am looking forward to working with you both, Sherry and Nadia. And if there's anyone else, if you're on the replay and you're like, oh my God, I really, really, really would love this opportunity, send me, or actually post it up into the group, because on Messenger, lots of the messages get lost because there's so many of you on that at the moment. So thank you so much for being here. Cracking day 2. What a great day. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.